The Unknowable is an internet horror series made by creator Jackalope Studios. This is a series that utilizes footage from public domain movies and uses it to tell an interesting, compelling, and original story. Along with these clips of old movies, there is also acted clips that were filmed separately and belong to the creator themselves. Each video is around 3 to 4 minutes until later on in the series. A couple of videos are more like 4 to even 8 or 10 minutes long. However, overall, it'll take you probably about 40 to 45 minutes to really watch this whole series. But I recommend watching it more than once. I've watched it twice now, in order to get everything that this series has to offer. I am going to do my best to break the series down, give you all the information, present it to you in a mildly interesting way, and hopefully that makes you want to go and watch the original series for yourself. As always with any of these internet horror series I cover, all the original links will be in the description so you can go and watch it for yourself and you don't have to listen to me babble on about it. If you find this to be interesting at any point, feel free to just click off and watch the original series and then come back to the video as I discuss all of the intricate details that will go into it. If this is something that interests you, I will be spoiling all of it. So just a fair warning, there will be spoilers, and let's get into it. The opening of this series feels like jumping out of a moving train. It gets going right from the beginning and doesn't let up. The series opens by introducing us to Thaddeus Wilcox, his wife Fanny, and her sister Mabel as they make their way from San Francisco into the Mojave Desert, where Thaddeus has purchased 100 acres of land known as Silent Creek. On the ranch at Silent Creek, there is a cattle farm and... oh god, what else is there? And a chapel. It's important to note the sense of urgency here. The Wilcoxes, they just packed up and left. Actually, they didn't even pack up. They just got up and left. They left all of their possessions in their home. They had the clothes on their backs, and they took off. There's this idea of some compelling force guiding the actions of the individuals throughout this storyline. That's kind of the point of the series, right there in a nutshell, but we're going to unpack what all of that means. When Thaddeus gets to the ranch, there's all these hired-on ranch hands that were already there. They kind of live there. Thaddeus fires all of them, not before he orders them to kill every cow that lives on the ranch. And so they do, and the Wilcoxes family watch while these farmhands go out and slaughter hundreds of cattle. Something this series does really well is set up the next episode and make you want to keep watching. It's by design, there's nothing clever, but it just makes you want to keep going. So this video ends like this.
Following the events that inevitably took place, investigators would scour what was left of the Silent Creek property, uncovering 3 corpses in the wreckage of the chapel's basement. What had become of the Wilcox family?
And from here we move on to episode 2. While living on this ranch, Thaddeus likes to walk around the desert at night and sort of think to himself and whatever. One night, however, he's walking out there and he receives a vision. He falls asleep and receives a vision from a race he later describes to his wife being called the Eridu. And these are some sort of extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial kind of beings. He wakes up naked and tells his wife this story whenever she finds him the next day. And he tells her that he feels drawn and compelled by this unknowable force to build a portal on the Silent Creek Ranch for the Eridu to visit Earth. He feels like this is what the Eridu have asked of him. His wife, Fanny, suddenly remembers having these visions as a kid, these dreams that she would have about a lighthouse. When she was sick with tuberculosis, and she had these very, very vivid and strange dreams that she hadn't had since, but they all revolved around a lighthouse of some kind. And so the Wilcox get to work building this lighthouse portal on the Silent Creek Ranch. But if you've ever seen any form of media that has something to do with time portals and time warps and things like that, you know that it can never go right. And in this case, an alternate portal opened up in New York for 6 seconds. And had no one stumbled across this portal, nothing bad would have happened. It would have been just a glitch in the time-space continuum. But the worst person possible gazed through the hole and saw his destiny. It was Vivek Street in New York. This portal was opened for 6 seconds, and a man by the name of Angus Duquette, I can't really understand the guy, is looks through the portal and sees his future. Angus Ducan is not a good guy. He's actually a serial killer known as the clown with no paint on his face. And the way it's like said in the thing, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, that's a little goofy. It's a little goofy. It's kind of a goofy name. But I can get past it. The rest of the series is really good. Goofy name, though. People say he killed between 20 and 200 people, depending on which timeline you remember. And that will make sense later. However, for now, you just need to know this is not a good guy. He is the son of a vaudeville actor who beat him, and his mother just would get high on opium and not do anything about it. Again, the way it was said in the thing was like kind of wild. Like, it made me laugh, even though this is like a really sad situation. Anyway, that's the end of episode 3. Moving on to episode 4. Episode 4, we learned about what Angus was doing. He was working at a carnival as a clown, but because of a rare skin condition, an allergy, he couldn't wear paint, like to paint his face white and red and all these colors. Hence the name, the clown with no paint on his face, which just doesn't roll off the tongue at all. But the clown with no paint on his face, he kills a bunch of people, and then he looks through the portal while he's on the run, and then here we are. Episode 5. We learn more about Mabel. We haven't seen much from her. She's just like wearing this weird mask, and it's a little unsettling. And Mabel doesn't talk. I forgot to mention that earlier. Mabel hasn't spoken a word since she was 5. But when the portal is opened and all of the Wilcox family look into it, Mabel says one word. Agatha. Now this is actually huge, but you don't know it yet. It's a slow burn. It gets there. The series was really good. I have to say, I really, really love this. I love the style. It's using clips from old movies. It's got its own live acting. There's some goofy stuff, but it's really, really, really good. And I recommend this over a lot of stuff. I know I say this all the time, but this is probably my favorite internet horror series I've seen to date. This video, episode 5, really focuses on what happened to Mabel and what Agatha means. What Agatha was Mabel's babysitter while her sister Fanny was in the hospital with tuberculosis. Fanny and Mabel's parents were paranoid after what happened to Fanny, and so they became increasingly germophobic, eventually leading to the point where they quarantined their own daughter from the house, and that was Mabel, and they had to hire for her a babysitter, and that babysitter's name was Agatha. Now, Agatha was... Insert Monty Python clip of guy saying, a witch. Mabel sees Agatha doing these nefarious things out on the property that they lived on, and suddenly Agatha becomes obsessed with wanting to become young again, and she creates these rituals. That's why she got into witchcraft, so she could remain young forever. And so she does this ritual that will allow her soul to enter into the body of Mabel. And to finish off this ritual,
hanging herself with her bedsheet not 3 feet from Mabel's bedside.
And Mabel has this doll that she's had with her this whole time. This whole time she won't let go of her doll. And even when she was a little kid, this was her doll and she never touched it. So she has it with her in this instance. And what happened was this. In the soul swapping thing, the ritual didn't work and Agatha's soul was lost into the ether. And Mabel's soul did leave her body, but it entered into the doll. So her sister Fanny actually interpreted her saying Agatha to be a good thing, to mean she's got some hope now, she can talk, it's exciting. This was not a good thing. This is a bad thing. This is really, really bad that she said Agatha. And I think you can guess why, but we'll get there. Just let it go. Let it simmer. Episode 6. Angus is now making his way towards the Mojave Desert. This is his mission, and he's just killing people left and right the whole time.
Instead of speeding his way west, Angus took his time, changed his appearance, shaving his beard, cutting his hair, donning a top hat, and delighted in his own warped sense of hijinks, playing sadistic tricks on anyone and everyone he could. Some conductors reported a strange figure advancing towards their train, riding atop an old handcar, engaged in what could only be described in modern times as a nightmarish game of chess.
There's some really cool, like, urban legend things kind of worked in here. The idea of the man on the handcart. All of this stuff is very cool. That it moves on and gets even cooler later on. This series is really exciting. It gets me excited when I watch it. Now, he hopped trains and would kill people and just scare the crap out of people. But one day he hopped onto a carnival train. And he met this mystic there. And this mystic tried to bring him back to the light side, the good side. And for a while it was working. Angus was like, yeah, he's right. I should turn on it. I got a fresh start. And then one day he looked into the mystic's crystal ball and saw the Eridu and saw his future in the Mojave Desert and immediately snapped back into his evil, twisted plots and proceeded to murder the entire circus, numbering 157 plus people. Oh, and he also released the lions. Thaddeus is getting sort of annoyed, disappointed, however you want to put it. The Eridu haven't showed up. He thinks it's all been for nothing. And he goes to Mexico and visits the city of Teotihuacan and goes to the Temple of the Sun and is looking for a vision. And back home, his wife Fanny is having all these crazy visions.
Back at Silent Creek, Fanny was experiencing visions of her own. She had been taken ill by a mysterious sickness, not dissimilar to tuberculosis which she had endured as a child, and now confined herself to her room, where she lay bedridden. Each night that Thaddeus was away, she would undergo vivid fever dreams, dreams which she would document with her typewriter each morning. On the first night, she dreamt of being a young girl, trapped in her childhood bedroom, a youthful version of Thaddeus then rescuing her, taking her far away from danger. Apparently safe, she then inflated a balloon to fly to the stars, only to have her father shoot her balloon down, where she fell back to Earth. Enraged, her father then proceeded to shoot the moon. On the second night, she dreamt of eyes. On the third night, she dreamt of stairs. She ascended these never-ending steps, climbing higher and higher as if to somewhere unknown. She thought maybe they were leading her to God and heaven. On the fourth night, she dreamed of hands, at first caressing her husband's hands in a tender embrace. But then the hands struggled, as if drowning, clasping to hold onto each other before it was too late. On the fifth night, she dreamt of geometric shapes. On the sixth night, she had no dreams. On the seventh night, she dreamt of hell. Fanny awoke in a cold sweat and immediately sent word to Thaddeus in Mexico.
Thaddeus kind of realizes that he's been a fool, and he spends some time in the city talking to people, and this is where we learn that he meets the narrator. The narrator knows Thaddeus. Thaddeus makes his way back to the Silent Creek Ranch, and things are getting weird. Episode 8 is really fun. Episode 8 is all about Angus Duquesne, the clown with no paint on his face, moving his way through the country and just tearing a swath of death and panic. There's this mass panic. There's all these copycat killings. It's not known whether he even killed very many more people after the circus. He's making his way back to the Mojave Desert. And he too, just like Thaddeus, is compelled by this unknowable force to get to the desert and fulfill whatever purpose the desert has for him there. Episode 9's a bit odd. Thaddeus went to Mexico on a plane, and the pilot that took him was like a weird stunt pilot, and she died. She was doing something and died. So he's got no way back. He ends up renting a bike and takes a bike from Mexico back to the Mojave Desert. And not like a bicycle, like a motorcycle. However, on his way there, he stops at a rest stop to get gas and speak to the people there. And he's just feeling super cloudy. And then he jumps into a pool of LSD.
On his sojourn, he rode through a quaint villa outside Guadalajara, where he stopped for lunch at a small commune of expatriates. After hearing the story of Thaddeus's woes, the expats implored Thaddeus to bathe in the waters of their pool in the back courtyard. The answers to everything he was looking for were said to be under the surface, as the pool was known to have mystical vision-inducing properties. In actuality, the expats had filled the water with several kilograms of LSD, and moments after Thaddeus dove headfirst into the pool, his body went into a state of shock. Unprepared for the amount of psychedelic immediately introduced to his system, he was pulled out of the water, but was now in a temporary state of catatonia.
Meanwhile, Angus Duquesne has arrived at Silent Creek. He's made it, and now he's looking around for the Erendu, and he sees that the Erendu are there. They appeared as these single-cell organisms, and they're just there taking over the wildlife in the area. He finds these 3 doves and brings them with him into the basement of the chapel, being very, very careful to avoid Fanny and Mabel, which he successfully does. And he brings these doves food and nourishes them as the Erendu take over the doves and grow to whatever they will become. During the time when this portal was opened, all this weird stuff was happening, and all these different fabrics of reality have like folded into each other and are overlapping, and all this weird stuff that I think could be real. Personally, that's just my own theory, but whatever. Like, I mean, not like in the story, but I think this could actually be an event that could be possible under the right circumstances after the right technology. Shut up. Anyway, all these realities are kind of folding over into each other and all these dimensions, and someone passes through.
Agatha Carruthers had returned.
What? Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. Like, that's crazy. Here we go. It's getting wild. From here on out, like I said, it shoots you out of a cannon right off the bat. Like it's like jumping off a moving train or sprinting out of a slow vehicle, whatever you want to call it. We get going fast, and then it kind of takes time and it shows you what's going on, but there's still like this. It's like chugging along, and then boom, Agatha Carruthers has returned, and then it goes off the walls at this point. The narrator is practically speed reading. It's intense. It's fun. It's I love it. All right, the final episode, episode 10. This episode is kind of wild. It kind of just throws everything at you at once. It's fun. Mabel has fully regained the ability to talk. Her soul has re-entered her body. It no longer is attached to the doll. And Fanny is so excited about this, and she receives a vision. And they hear cackling coming from the basement downstairs. They live in the chapel.
Fanny and Mabel rejoiced after being made whole once again. However, the happiness would be short-lived, for Fanny had a sudden flash of horrible eyes. This, amid other visions denoting impending death and destruction. Fanny knew something was terribly wrong. When the sisters heard an awful cackling sound coming from the basement, Fanny realized she had misinterpreted her recent fever dream involving stairs. Instead of ascending to heaven, she was meant to do just the reverse. She and her newly returned sister crept down the chapel stairs together into the depths of the basement. That's when they found the witch, Agatha Carruthers, awaiting them. Agatha attacked the sisters in a vicious assault. Up above, Angus Duquesne had climbed the scaffolding on the side of the lighthouse machine and was trying to harness the untamed power the Erendu had been generating and channel it into himself. An electrical storm began. Angus was unable to control the massive amount of energy now flowing through the air. He was struck by lightning and fell from the great height. Angus picked himself up, realizing that he needed to return to the basement, bring out one of the Erendu, and try again. But with all the chaos caused by the electromagnetic storm, a fire had started and the property was now in flames. Down in the chapel basement, Fanny and Mabel used this momentary distraction to overpower Agatha and tie her to a support beam. It's at this point where details become murky. It is said that as the sisters were making an escape, Angus appeared, forcing them back downstairs at knife point.
During all this, Angus calls for help from the Erendu that he has raised, and they eat him. It seems that Angus was simply a vessel for the Erendus to use in order to help them mature, because they knew that they would become as single-celled organisms and that they needed all this stuff to happen just for them to work. So they're using all of these people in the story, Thaddeus and Fanny and Mabel and Agatha, all as pawns. All this wild stuff is going on, and then
the Erendu were about to turn their sights on Fanny and Mabel when a shot rang out, blasting the small alien creatures to hell. It was Thaddeus. He had serendipitously awoken from his drug-induced catatonic state the day before at the moment when the micro-event had quietly rippled through Silent Creek. He grabbed hold of his wife Fanny and her sister Mabel, and the three of them fled the fiery grounds, not looking back as Agatha burned alive as would a witch burning at the stake. The blaze lasted through the night, destroying the entire Silent Creek ranch.
Just like that, before you even know it, it's all burned to the ground. The Erendu have failed in their mission, and we're left wondering what happened. The Erendu that appear as these single-celled organisms have infected Fanny several times in her life. We learn that Fanny, who has had tuberculosis now 3 times in her life, is that was caused each time by the Erendu. The Erendu infected her body and gave her this sickness that resembled tuberculosis and gave her these visions of the lighthouses and stuff like that. We learn that they use time and manipulate it in order to help bring themselves into existence. And they've tried this time and time again, and it's failed for the 3rd time now. And Fanny learns while she's sick this last time, they are now looking towards the future. So who knows what the Erendu have planned for the future? It is for us to find out. We learn that the narrator was being told this by Fanny and would have found it to be rather far-fetched had he not heard the very early parts of the story years before in Mexico from Thaddeus. This story is really, really interesting. I really like the way the time travel works, how every character gets these big build-ups, and then at the end you just find out they are pawns in the game, and everything just circles around to this massive cosmic horror of what did the Erendu want to do? What is their purpose? And I think that is something that is simply unknowable. Sorry for that terribly cheesy ending. This series is really, really good. I suggest you watch it for yourself. There's really nothing like it. It's funny. Like, why in the world does Angus walk like that? Like, what possessed? Like, it's just goofy sometimes. But it never becomes too goofy. It never becomes more than what it's supposed to be. It's really good. It's really fun. It's really, really cool. The way it's done is super creative. I can't brag about this series enough. It's awesome. And I wanted to bring that to you guys. I know it's something different than what I normally talk about. I normally talk about analog horror. This one's not so much analog horror. However, it's the same thing as like you'd watch any analog horror series. It's on YouTube. You can sit and watch the whole playlist. That will be linked in the description below. I thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope it made some kind of sense. But otherwise, thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Yeah. All right.